There we go. Thank you all for waiting patiently for one of our first KBS Extra shows. Yes, indeed. You know, we've had a big change. We've gone from simulcasting the main Kev Baker show to now doing a pre-Kev Baker show. And that's so that TFR, they've got their live stream now, and we all jump over there. But we had such a thing going with the live streams that I didn't want it all to go to waste. I didn't want to lose those bonds that we've been forming out there in Chatland on the Discord server. I can't thank you all enough for being here tonight. And you know, we've been diving down into the Mandela effects and time and synchronicities in the past couple of days, and talk about a synchronicity that led to this show tonight. We'll hear more about that in a moment, but not so long ago, when I opened up the phones one night, as we do now here on the show, and I love to do it, and it's already, you know, we're reaping the rewards of opening the phones, because tonight we're going to be talking to somebody that phoned in towards the end of a show not too long ago. And the minute I connected this phone call, you know how I roll. Some people laugh at it, some people love it. It is what it is. I go with my gut instinct, right? And I don't know what it was about this call, but unbeknown to me, you know, speaking to the guys before the show here tonight, the caller was feeling this exact same kind of buzz, the same kind of energy that I was feeling. So that led to me really going out on a limb. I don't usually do it. But I kind of said to the caller, you know, let's do a show. I'd only heard a snippet of what he had to say. And boy, oh boy, am I glad I took a chance. Because today we're going to be joined by two guys from Wales. And I know we've got a lot of listeners down in Wales. Big shout out to all of you. And if you think I've got a cool accent, wait until you hear these guys. But they're not ordinary guys, no. They form a paranormal research team called Paranormal Now. But that isn't even scratching the surface, because tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be joined by Jared Walters and Richard Oliver. And we're going to be talking about the paranormal. We're going to be talking about Jonathan and the Council of 12. No long-winded bio from me tonight. Let's go straight down to not-so-sunny Wales. And trust me, folks, I've got like PTSD when it comes to Wales. I had to sleep out in the cold down there many's a night. Now, don't feel sorry for me. It was self-inflicted. I was in the army. I got paid semi-decent money for it. So let's go live there now. Here we go. Jared and Richard, welcome to the show, guys. And Jared, I'm going to come to you first, brother. It's great to speak to you and not have to rush this time. I don't know what happened, but
that was one hell of a call.
well, I'll get you to kind of before we even get you to introduce yourself. You were telling me it was kind of weird how you ended up on the show that day to begin with, right? Because you've been an on-off listener. I'll let you tell the audience.
Well, I followed you for a while, Kev, and you've been one of those shows where it's always been like you've always like sort of popped up, and you've always been talking about something that's grabbed my attention. And I'll go through spurts of listening to different people because I like listening to different people's conversations. And myself and Richard were having a conversation about how we were going to get this message out there, the things that have been happening to us. And literally, I'm a medium. Basically, I've seen spirit all my life. And someone just said, the Kev Baker show. I was like, Kev Baker show? Oh my God, I haven't listened to that for a while. And I came downstairs, and literally about half an hour later, I was scrolling through YouTube, and you know what YouTube algorithms are like, and you came up, you were live, and I was like, oh, and you were talking about time, and I tuned in, and it was like you were doing this call-in, and I was like, oh my God, the energy surrounding it was palpable. And it was my first time ever ringing into like a radio show. I don't really get nervous in that, you know, type of things. Like, you know, with my job, I can talk to a room full of people. But as I was sitting there on the line and other people were giving their opinions and different things, this energy was building and building and building. And as soon as you came through, you thought it was someone else. And I was like, no, it's Jared from Wales. And this energy just sort of came over me. I was almost in tears. I was literally like having to battle through my words because it was just the synchronicity and the energy that I felt there was just, it was something else. And the fact that you turned on and said that, it was just like, wow. And it must have took me about 5 or 6 hours to come down from that energy because it was overwhelming. It was
Well,
overwhelming.
Jared, you weren't alone, brother, and I feel a similar energy today. I'm looking forward to what we're embarking on here because, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be like no ordinary paranormal show. And I only know the bare bones of what we're about to get into here. But before we go too deep, let me go to our other special guest tonight, Richard. And Richard, you had Jared coming to you, you know, phoning this lunatic up in Scotland, some clown called Kev Baker's show. And here we are now. It's nice to meet you, brother. And tell us a little bit about who you are, Richard.
We've lost connection.
Oh, it's okay. I've got you back, brother. Yeah, tell us a little bit about who you are, Richard.
I'm a paranormal investigator and psychic medium. I've been doing this for nearly 20 years. And I started off because I was experiencing the paranormal myself. Set up a group called Paranormal Wales. We run that for about 5 or 6 years, maybe a bit longer. That went because of the stuff we were dealing with. And then me and Jazzy decided to start Paranormal Now. And that's where this sort of like the story gets a bit crazy and interesting.
Okay then, so first up, now should we really get Jared's backstory here a bit? Let's get to know you a little bit better, Jared. What brought you up to the point where you crossed paths with Richard? Tell us about your life story.
I have seen spirits since I was very, very young. And I'm actually registered blind. I do have some vision, but I am actually registered blind. So basically, I can see quite a bit out my right eye. My left eye, you can pretty much forget about it. I can see light and dark and a bit of shadows and stuff, which works out well when you're doing investigations in the dark, especially when you're with, the amount of times that we've had jokes about that. I'm very liberal with my eyesight. I basically, I grew up, I went to a school for the blind. So like up until I was about 10 years old, I was experiencing different things. I didn't realize they were paranormal. It wasn't only when I went to mainstream school and started like hanging around with people who were sighted and getting into things like football and different things, normal kids are into. It's been with me all my life. And the link throughout the early life to the outside world was my brother, Jonathan. Long story short, basically, Jonathan passed away when I was 16. He was 20, I was 16. He's your average 20-year-old lad. Fun-loving, mischievous. And basically, around about the time, about 4 months before he passed away, I would see my grandfather in my dreams. My grandfather passed like a few years prior. And in the dream, he came to me and he said, we were on a boat. And he said, you're going to have a really hard time coming up. He said, I want you to promise me something. He said, whatever happens, he says, don't let the ship sink. He says, don't let the ship sink. It's going to get ropey. Just don't let it sink. Don't go down with it. And this was kind of the defining moment of my life, because up until then I was seeing like apparitions around me, and it was quite frightening, to be honest. After Jonathan passed away, I would see him around. I seen him in the hospital after leaving. Basically, I seen him in the hospital just after he passed. And then subsequently through the years, I would see him in dreams. One, for example, was we were walking back home and he told me that I had to meet him halfway. that he couldn't do it on his own. I had to meet him halfway. And around about 2009, 2010, I started looking into this properly because when I was seeing it originally, up until I was about 18, it kind of stopped for a while. And I went on and did other things, did university, had my own business for a while. And basically around about 2009, 2010, I started looking into this in quite a big way, started getting into doing meditations and different things. And eventually in 2012, I lost my job. So thought I would start working as a medium. I'd done that for about a year and a half to basically up until about the end of 2013, 2014. In amongst that time, my partner and I had moved into our first house. And one night we had, I seen a figure in my doorway, and this figure was there for a good, literally 10 minutes. And I was just staring at it. It was about 6 foot tall. It was very hazy. And as it kind of come into view, it looked like the head looked like what you would see as like the grey alien type thing. In amongst that time, I'm trying to condense quite a lot. Sorry. In amongst that time,
Jared, may I just say that you are doing an absolutely fantastic job. I tell you, Richard, I better watch myself here. You guys might be taking over my slot. I'm listening to Jared laying this out, and I'm thinking, wow, I wish I could hit every word just right on note like that. But Jared, if I may, because I'm full of questions just listening to this. You know, you mentioned your brother there who passed away, and almost immediately you started seeing him. Is that correct?
Yeah, literally as we left the hospital, the nurses did this thing where whenever someone in intensive care passes away, they shut all the doors in the corridor to allow the spirit to leave. And we were in the waiting area, and this is quite emotional. I don't go back to this quite often because literally I can, if I think of a memory, I can literally be there, right? But literally, I was stood in the waiting room, and he appeared in front of me, and I just give him the thumbs up. And over the course of the next sort of few weeks, he appeared. I seen him at his funeral. I seen him sort of just would just appear in my bedroom. Just generally around. For the first sort of around about the first year after he passed away, I would see him literally probably once a day. There was one time I was playing, I don't know if you remember the game Civilization, the PC game Civilization.
I certainly do, yeah.
Sid Meier's. Well, basically there was one night where I was in college and I was kind of isolating myself. I was trying to deal with all the feelings I was feeling because a lot of friends couldn't really identify with what I was going through. And I did an all-nighter on Civilization, and I finally beat the game. And I had like a long desk, and my PC was at the end of this long desk. And I had a swivel chair. And to the right of the desk was like a chair. And I pulled back after like completing the game, and it was like, yes, kind of thing. I turned around and I saw him like a solid apparition, and that doesn't scare me now, but at that point, being 17, it scared the absolute bejesus out of me.
Yeah, and I mean, both you guys. I mean, Richard, has this been all your life? You've been kind of had that second sight, whatever gift. What name would you give it? Mediumship?
Well, I didn't know. My childhood was a bit like a horror movie. I grew up quite street with my boys, and we were quite naughty boys, if you know what I mean, Kev.
Oh yes.
And yeah, we were very well. I say quite naughty. I was understatement. And it was like a duality, because I had my life on the streets with the boys, getting up to mischief and doing different things. And then I had this paranormal part of my life, which was for a kid, which was pretty cruel, and I couldn't get the two to sort of tally up. I didn't have no one to turn to. I didn't have no one to talk to. Even when I showed my best mates, who, you know, I showed them evidence of this stuff, and they couldn't accept it, even though they'd seen it with their own eyes. It was harrowing. You know, it made me move out to my family home and go to live with my nan, but it followed me there, came back. It sort of died down as I just come towards about 15, 16. I had little spurts of a year and there. Then I met my partner at the time, back in the day, and she experienced stuff with me, to the point where I thought I was actually going to lose her. And yeah, and my kids were born, and it just kept on and on. And I was on the sick for a long time, and in that period of time, it sort of just took a back burner. And it was only till I started doing security that it sort of like ramped up again, and it spurred me on to find out more about what was happening to me, and, you know, and try and actually investigate it. But in doing that, it kind of spiraled, because we created a group, and my first case was a case in Cardiff, and it just spiraled. It was in the media, it was on the news, and it just spiraled us into something else. And I never thought it would. I thought I might do a case, one case a year, and I ended up, like 2016, we were doing 2 cases a night at some point, weren't we, Jack? And
yeah,
it's not. I wouldn't say it turned out exactly as I expected, but there was always something. It was always something I felt in myself growing up that I couldn't quite find in others. And it just spurred me on. It just spurred me on to find some answers.
I tell you, thanks for sharing that, because I often talk to people that, in and around the paranormal. I've spoke to a few mediums before, but it's only really listening to you there that I can really almost empathize. You said it was harrowing, and I suppose it would be. At times we sometimes get lost thinking this is almost entertainment, but for two
Yeah.
guys like you, this is literally your life, and I can imagine it, and I can relate to you in particular, Richard. Because I hung about with the wrong ones at school as well. Ended up in the army, went into security, too much time on my hands in security, and here we are now. But I've never really sat down and thought about it before, like growing up like that, having something different, especially when you're like with the bad lads, the trendy ones. Not something you're really going to quickly share with people, and that must be quite lonely.
It wasn't so much lonely. I just felt like it was because I was a kid, and it was like, I got pulled out of bed. I'd have my covers pulled off me. I saw things real, like things that are not supposed to happen in this world, and I could never get anyone, even my own mum and dad. They couldn't, as a kid. And they were like, oh, it's just your imagination. It's just this. It's just that. And there was stuff happening to me that was really, it caused me to smash. I know it's going to sound crazy, but it caused me one day to come home from school. I was about 14, and I literally went ballistic. I smashed my bedroom to bits, my wardrobe. I just ransacked the house, and I was screaming. I was like, come on, show yourself to me. Like, I'm going to mess you up. I was like, in that point, I was a kid. I was quite fiery. And at that point, and it spurred me on to do, because I wanted to help kids that would going through the same thing, because I couldn't find any help. No one would listen to me. And that's why I think that's the way I approached it in the beginning, was to look at, if a child, because I've helped about 45, 50 families whose children see spirit over the years. And that's done me I can't, like, on a spiritual sense, has done me. Oh, it's done something for me. That being there when there was no one there for me. If that makes sense, Kev.
Yeah, and before I go back to Jared, I mean, what would you offer to any parents right now who might think maybe that their child does have some kind of gift, you know,
Well, you've got
or is
to.
it a curse?
Well, I used to always call it my curse. I always used to actually. This is true. I always used to call it a curse, Kev, until I went to the church, and then it became a gift. But as a child, if it is a curse, especially if your parents, it's nothing to be afraid of. It some kids are scared, but some kids take that, they just become spiritual. There's something about them. You've heard it all the time. You say, oh, I've seen a 5-year-old girl, and it was like talking to a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
And she was like, she would just be shopping, and she'd go over and pull someone's, coat and say, I've got your auntie here, she wants to talk to you, or I've got your nan here, and she's a little duck, like, and she was just zen with it. She knew they were dead. She knew these people, and she was just cool with it. Some kids, they take it a little bit differently. I've seen them kids who are terrified. When you sit down and explain it to them, they change. But if, as a parent, listen. Don't just dismiss. Listen, and do a little investigation into it yourself. Take the photos, do the recordings. Listen to what your child is saying. If they seem like they're talking to someone and they're not, there's so many things you can do to paint the bigger picture.
I think that is really, really good advice. And we talk a lot about the nature of reality on the show on here, guys. And people like you, Jared, Richard here, mediums, for me, they just see more of the full picture. Because I often talk about how everything, you can't separate the spiritual world and the physical world. And for me, people with this ability, it's just that they see a wider spectrum of reality, if you want to think of it that way. And for people who have never had any dealings with the paranormal, I know that sometimes, it might be a bit of a stretch. All I can offer you is, until you've been there, just listen, because I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but something might happen where it would shift your opinion on all of this stuff. And the more we go into the future, the more paranormal stuff is happening. So, Jared, let me come back to you. 2012, we got to you, went full-time mediumship, and bring us up
Can
to
I make
almost...
a point?
Yeah, on you go. Yeah.
Two things there. When people say about a gift, and like, you get some people, right? The way I look at it, and I don't know whether Richard looks at it the same way as I do, but you get people who are naturally good at drawing. You get people who are naturally good cooks, right? They just take to something straight away. With mediumship or psychic phenomena or empaths, it's the same thing. It's the fact that it's been marginalized in our society for so long. Like, I grew up in what I always call it the X-Files generation, where a lot of people, it becomes socially acceptable to talk more about things like ghosts, UFOs, spirits, that sort of thing. And I feel that everyone, to a point, has this ability. It just manifests in a way that's right for them. And I think sometimes I look back at the things I've gone through, and they were savage at the time, but they were preparing me for the things I would have to do in later life. They were preparing me. I was going through it. So when other people would go through it, like Richard was a prime example there. He could be there to help them. And Rich, that's the first time I've actually heard you say that in that kind of way. And the many, many deep and meaningful conversations we've had.
It's going to be one of these shows where we bring revelations to the surface. I can feel it, guys. Listen, I feel like I've known you two guys for ages. Barely spoke to you for what? It's been half an hour already. And listen, I'm not in any rush tonight. And I hope you guys aren't either, because I don't want to rush this. Because I love listening to all the background and everything else, but I don't want the audience to lose sight of the fact that there's a really pressing and urgent thing that we're building up to here as well. But I don't want to rush there. I want to bring people up to speed. So I'm going to come
Yeah.
back to you, Jared, and I'll let you continue the story.
Well, basically, I seen the figure in my doorway. Around about that time, I had met Richard. Basically, on a whim, I had a look into being a paranormal investigator. There was a lot of personal paranormal stuff that went on around that time, which I'm not going to go into. But the figure in my doorway actually came and sat on my bed, and my partner was there, and she saw it as well. And they basically they asked us a question. They said, one thing we don't understand, why is it when a baby cries on a bus, people get annoyed? Because that baby is just showing that it's in pain, or that it's trying to communicate something to you, and your response is annoyance. And that really just set me thinking. And Richard was an absolute godsend because we went through a lot within the space of a good few weeks. We went through a lot of activity, and he basically just helped us through it every step of the way. And
Jared, just to be clear, I mean, this entity, I think I read today, it's a tall, what we would call a grey alien type thing, right? The big black eyes, yeah?
Yeah.
One, two? One of them? Two of them?
There was actually two of them.
Now, before this, had you ever, in your whole experience of the paranormal up to that point, experienced anything like this?
Didn't believe in it.
Wow. So you actually, so I mean, I liked how you said there you come from the X-Files generation. I take it we're all about the same age here, guys, you know, and I definitely like to believe the truth is out there. I'm a Mulder all the way, but that's even more fascinating. Not that it needs to add more credibility, but somebody that's a non-believer to then be thrust into this position, you know?
Yeah, well, I was documenting, because Richard said document everything. And I sat down and I documented it. And I'm not sure if it's in the video I shared with you, but it's definitely on our channel. But I've shared it a bunch of times. And I went back over this video, and I could hear this voice in the background. And I was like, what the heck is this? Because I wasn't really my experience of paranormal up to this point was watching Most Haunted on a Tuesday night on Living, like, do you know what I mean? Or whatever night of the week it was on. The psychic side of it, I was interested in, but I was green. I was brand new to all this when this happened to me. I was completely brand new to it. And it was, the voice said, truth seeker, share with us. And after the help I had off Richard, I asked, well, the reason I sort of met him was because I was interested in joining a team, and that just made it even more I wanted to help other people. I didn't want other people to be in that position, because it was frightening. It did. And people kind of gloss over this and they make it all transcendental. Oh, isn't it lovely? But it's sometimes it can be quite cruel in a way, because it breaks down your view of reality. And you've got nothing. You've literally got to start again from scratch. And, you know, this is...
Oh. I think we've had a Skype freeze over there, Richard. You're still with me? Yeah, that's okay. It is. He's back now. There we go. It's okay, Jared. We had a bit of a Skype glitch there, but you're back now. So that's the main thing. You got as far as where some people kind of see it as transcendental and they kind of gloss over it.
Transcendental, and everyone experiences it in their own way. But to me, I've always found it's breakthrough.
Okay, so when was this event? So when was this event? What year was that with the alien thing?
2013.
Okay, so Richard, let me come to you then, right? Because how long had you known Jared at this point, and what was going on around you at this time?
Well, I'd only met Jared once. He come to one of our like an open day where we were looking for recruits for Paranormal Wales. We'd spoke on the phone because we just kind of clicked. I just could. There's something that happens in the paranormal field. You meet people, and for some reason, you feel like you've known them for years.
Like
And
I'm feeling right now. You mean?
Yeah, it is. No, honestly, Kev, you feel it's something. There's different names for it, but what it is, because if you've been in the paranormal energy. So, say if your house has been haunted and you're surrounded by this energy, what happens is that you sort of glimpse the future, because that energy is within the same sort of scientific realm, if you like. And you just meet people, and you can't explain it. It's like a weird connection, and you just feel like you've known them for years. It's happened to me for years and years.
It's almost like a deeper kind of subconscious familiarity. Yeah. You recognize in that other person that part of you. You've both been touched by it, I think, yeah?
Yeah, well, it's like, you imagine if your energy, our energy reaches out, and that energy connects, because the things we've discovered, like through reincarnation, if which we believe is true, it says a lot that we've done this in the past, and we'll continue to do it into the future. And with the paranormal, all them sort of doorways and realms can get convoluted. They can mix into each other. There's so many things. I've never done a case where it's just been a go in. This is Guy Frank who lived there. He passed away in that chair, and he's not happy because you put flowery wallpaper up. It doesn't. It's never that kind of story. There's always something quite deep and meaningful to the story, and you find a really big story, and you find the connections with the people who live there now, and there's so much to it. It's not just like that. It's not just walking around with the K2 meters going, oh look.
I like your style, man. I like your style. I like how you roll. And yeah. Listening to the two of yous are coming from the best of places, because it's totally about others. You've both said that without probably even realizing it. And I think that in itself is a really good starting place. And we've had Jared. Then he comes to you, Richard. He tells you what's happened in the bedroom. I mean, what's your initial thoughts there? Is this something new to you, or have you been there? Have you had something like that?
I have had, up until that point, I had dealt with like ETs and different things. So I just come at it from an investigative point of view. And I said, right, you've got to look at it like this. And we did different things. And I said, let's try, we'll look for different answers. We use different devices, different techniques. And it sort of like just built up this picture. I'd had an ET connection because when I started in the church, because I was doing the doors and security, and there was so much stuff happening to me at night, it was quite harrowing, because I've done the doors. I've had 15, 20 boys want to film me in. Doesn't bother me. It was part of the job I actually kind of enjoyed. But doing security nights in buildings on your own was a different ball game. And so I ended in the church. I'd started meditation. My first ever meditation. I went somewhere. I was aboard a ship. I was looking at this strange being. He looked at me exactly the same way I was looking at him, because I shouldn't have been there. Told the church. My teacher said, you don't like that in the church, you can't talk about it. And I was like, oh, brilliant. Well, I've come here for answers. But through this process of meditation, I had come in contact with what I believe was the Council of 12. So, and in my life, I'd seen different things, and I'd had strange experiences, and people had sort of gravitated towards me with this sort of ET connection. So I had a little bit of basis and knowledge that I'd done myself through research, about what Jazz had experienced. So yeah, we sort of went through it together, though.
Now, you mentioned there the Council of 12.
Mm.
Talk to us about the Council of 12. What is this thing? I've heard this term been bandied about before.
Yeah.
I want to get your guys' take on what we're dealing with here.
Well, I was meditating and I kept having negative things happen to me. And it was one particular meditation, something negative came into my space, which was like a garden, and it was an oak tree, and it was my space to relax and commune with spirit. And I just had enough this one day, and I literally lost my temper, and I just sent out this sort of like energy and pushed everything away from me as far as I could. But I think it was the frame of mind, and in doing so, I was left with this image. Now, I when I meditate, I don't know if it's a weird thing, but I can really get into a meditation. I'm very sort of in there. And when I did this, I was left with an image of these beings in like an auditorium, and I was stood in the middle, and there was like a panic. Like it seemed like.
Oh, now Jared, I still see you there. It's okay. The Skype will kick
In
back
my
in a
spirit
moment.
world.
There we are. Now,
Oh,
no, it's okay,
we
Richard.
back?
Just
Sorry.
go back to, if you could go back and start again when you're in the auditorium.
The last word we heard was
Yeah.
panic, Rich.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and sorry, there was like a panic from these beings because I could see them, and they all of a sudden I'm back in my garden, and I thought, whoa, what was that? So I did it again. I sent this energy out, and I was in this middle of this thing, and there was these beings, and I was like, what? You know, and I said, what are you like? What is this? What are you doing? And one of the beings came forward and said, please forgive us. We've been testing you. And which I wasn't best pleased about. And I was like, so from that moment on, I had like a dialect with these beings, and I would meditate and they would bring me to them. They would sort of basically come and fetch me from my meditation, and I would just answer questions, and and it's pretty hard to put into words, but it was always questions about spirituality, and what the gist I got of it was they're looking for the connection between the physical and spiritual, and some of these beings have become very spiritual, and they want to guide us and help us and learn about our connection with God and spirit and these other realms. And yeah, it's
Now,
and then
now,
yeah, go on.
are these the same type looking aliens that Jared had dealt with in his room?
There was a group of beings that looked very similar. They all were different. They all looked different. There was one being which would come in, and when I asked these beings about this spirit, it was basically the only thing I can describe it. Imagine it was like an angel, but just made of light, and it would come and go. And when I asked these beings about this other being, which wasn't part of the council, they said that being just does what he wants. It comes in, it's like a watcher. It observes us and observes their interaction with me. But they were all different. And I mean, very different in sort of shapes and sizes. But there was a tall, grey-looking being in the Council of 12.
Wow. Now, the audience are all kind of hanging on every word here. And this might sound random, guys. A, that's how the Kev Baker show is. And B, we done a show on this recently, and it is. I want to find out, are either of you RH negative? Blood type?
No idea.
No?
No idea.
You might want to
No.
check into that. There seems to be, and I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent because I want to stay on the story, but there seems to be a high percentage of people with psychic abilities, contactees, abductees. The Rh negative is statistically an anomaly. For some reason, that blood type. So I don't know. Anyway, that was a question from the audience, Lisa. I thought I'd throw it in there, and maybe that's something we can find out in the future.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can tell you something that I have. Basically, I told you earlier I was on the sick,
Yeah.
and I had this thing where my immune system just broke down, and they told me for 5 years that I had cancer, and then at the end of the 5 years, they said, "We know you had it or you've got it, but we just can't find it." And basically, I had to do research because obviously that, as you can imagine, that left me in a pretty bewildering place. And the illness I had and the symptoms I had are so rare. I've met one person in my life, and that was in Turkey. And yeah, I saw.
So this was almost like radiation sickness, but they couldn't like track it down the source.
It was just I was quite healthy. I was super fit. I used to run and train and everything. And something happened. I developed asthma. I developed IBS, COPD, as well as asthma.
Hey, I've got that one as well, man. Yep. I'm in that club.
Arthritis. I developed these allergies and skin allergies, and I developed clubbing on my fingers. And they just said they were doing tests, and they were saying, "Oh, it's all cancer, but we can't find it."
Now, was this at the same time as you were in contact through meditation with? No.
No. This was way before. Okay. This was coming out of this paranormal experience and sort of moving into my 20s. So this started when I was about 18. And it went on till I was 23.
Got you.
But it was so rare. It's like one in it's like 1 in 60 odd million or something. It's insane, and it's super rare. So I remember when they told me that, and when I did some research on it, I was like, what's that about?
That is strange, and I wonder if it is in some way connected. Now, guys, you've got to the point then where Jared has come back to you after meeting you initially, Richard. He's given you his experience. You sound like the perfect guy to go to. I can't think of anyone better that Jared could have gone to. And you've got this meditation, the contact with the Council of 12. Where do we go from there, guys? Where does the story go from that point?
Well, do you want to tell that part, Jazz?
Yeah, okay. I was thinking which one I was going to go first. Well, basically, over the course of a few, we had stuff in our house, and it took about 2 years to properly clear it. And I remember partly we were doing cases. Over the course of the next sort of 2 years, I would sort of shadow Rich on cases until 2016, when things sort of started going really sort of berserk. And we did some investigations, we did some public events, and the first one of that, even though I'd been on some cases, Rich took me on training up at a local site, Castle Cork, or near Castle Cork, which is near Cardiff. It's one of the big castles in Wales. I think it stands for the Red Castle. And in the middle of this investigation, one of the investigators is holding this device in his hand, and it's a radio, and it's sweeping at a really high rate. And all I can hear is this chugging. And I'm like, what's that then? Is it a radio? It sounds like a radio. And he's like, well, no, it's a ghost box. Basically, it sweeps through radio frequencies, and spirit's supposed to manipulate the audio coming through it. And I'm like, I've got to admit, there was a little bit inside me. I went, ha, cool. Right? And then within the next couple of seconds, he says, I want to talk to Jared now. It says there are, and I can commit these things to memory. What it tells us, it says there's other strands that you will learn simply, but it will take years, and you will find people that understand there's a problem with the way the world is. These people will start to wake up, and I'm paraphrasing. They will start to wake up to who they really are. And in amongst that time as well, we'd done some other experiments on our own, and we'd had contact with something which we didn't quite know what it was. We now know, I think it was the Council of 12, but they didn't really identify themselves as that until later on. And what I found was over the years, we just did ghost box sessions. I eventually bought an SB7. Then one thing sort of led to another, and another member of our team actually got really interested in the field of ITC. Now, ITC stands for Instrumental Transcommunication. And it's basically, it comes from like the 1930s, where the Swedish military thought they were picking up Nazi code because they were picking up these voices on radio frequencies. And it basically, it's through the whole research of, I won't go into it now, but the whole research of EVP, electronic voice phenomena. But who we were following was a YouTuber by the name of Steve Huff, Huff Paranormal, who had developed, and other people had done this as well, but he was one of the main ones, had developed these apps. And we were using these apps on cases, which would do the same thing as the radio ghost boxes, but it would do it with a digital radio. And honestly, I don't really know the ins and outs of it, because I'm not that kind of... I'm technically minded enough to get by, but that's about it, right?
Yeah. And I must admit, I've loved the introduction of more technology, the ghost boxes, the spirit boxes. I believe you guys also use, now I might be wrong, but I'm sure I've seen a picture on your website. I call it the stick men, the Xbox men. Do you?
Yes, the Kinect.
So you utilize that. Talk to us about that a little bit, just for maybe people out there that don't know what I'm talking about. And I think I'll be able to go to your website and pull up the image that I've seen.
Yeah. Rich, if you want to talk a little bit about that, because you know a little bit more about the Kinect. If that's okay.
Yeah. Well, basically, we used it, a bit of advice to any paranormal investigators out there. If you do happen to use it on an house investigation, don't do with the people you were investigating for, with them viewing it, because it will scare them. Just to get that in there first. I've got to get in as a disclaimer. Basically, it's an Xbox Kinects.
Yeah, they're the picture there, the classic stick man, as I call it.
Yeah, well, that picture, Kev, right, just in that instance, that figure, the short figure, touches one of our investigators, Debbie, touches her cheek. Now, she can't see what I can see. And she says, "Ooh, it touched my cheek." And she reaches up to the same cheek that the figure touched. And it physically, and you see it on camera, it reaches up and touches her. Now, I've asked, and I put it out on our channel for anyone to debunk that, because there's lots of people, they're saying it's pseudoscience.
No, Richard, I've seen something similar before. And it was like you, almost identical to what you said. Somebody reacted to a touch that the person on the camera who's watching hadn't actually even mentioned yet. So I'm a firm believer that this does pick up on something. Now, I've seen a lot of false positives with chairs. It picks up on the back of the chair and the legs of the chairs. That's fine. But something like that there, you can blatantly see. And sorry to kind of go off on a tangent into that, but you brought up the technology, and I like the fact you use that. So if I come back to you then, Jared, and we get back to the use of the spirit boxes and everything else, I'll let you pick it up from there.
Well, one of the questions people ask is, why does spirit need a box? It's like, well, the difficult thing is, as I'm a medium, right? Now, the connection with a spirit box, people think, well, if they just chuck an app on, right, that it would work. No, spirit actually they manipulate the audio that's coming through the app, but they use the connection they have with you, right? So they are actually using your energy, apparently, to communicate. So we decided. Well, I had a dream one night, and I dreamt that we were all sat in the room I'm in now, and we were listening to the Ghost Box. And out of that, I said to Richard, I said, look, what we should do is do some experiments with these devices, do it live on YouTube, which ultimately proved to be a bit of a mistake, to be honest with you, the fact we did it live. And
you live and learn on YouTube, Jared. You live and learn, yeah.
It's because of the amount of things that came through that were actually quite personal. But we did about 8 or 9 of them, and we did one in front of an audience as well. And we tried different ones, and it would literally be very different to what other people had. But we were getting like full conversations where it was telling us everything from like my brother would come through, and he would talk about things that had happened to me since he passed away. There was the Council 12 would come through, and they confirmed what happened to Richard. They would talk to us about things that's happening on this planet, that we are actually going through a big transition at the moment, but there's a lot that we have to confront. There's a lot of problems with this world, and we're getting to a point now where we're going to have to confront them, and it's going to be very hard. It's going to be a trial. They've even told us that they call it the monster. But I personally believe, and we've had, this is the thing, Kev, right? There's a lot of people that will tell you, oh, they know it's this, or they know it's that, right? I don't. There's a lot of times I hear things, and I think it's because I my visual impairment, where I can catch really quiet responses, or ones that are quite muffled, because I rely a lot more on my hearing. It's not my hearing is better than anyone else's. It's just I'm used to relying on my hearing more than I am my vision. But, there's other ones which are crystal clear. So there's a lot, we don't know is the answer to a lot of the stuff that's coming through. Like the one on the video I sent you, where Jonathan comes through and says, I'm your brother, you docile. I'm not going to say the word because it's average. But that's how Jonathan would have said it. That's distinctly Jonathan. That was his person. That's the kind of thing that we'd have. We wouldn't be like sort of lovey-dovey and give each other a hug. If we see each other in the street, we give each other a dead arm. It was that kind of sibling brotherly love, like. And we had one where we did public events, and we used these devices in public events. And there was one, Richard, we did in our we did sort of in, I can't really give the location of it, but we did the one where the COVID-19 stuff came up with the Q3, Reg. Oh, the Q3, yeah. That one I think kind of scared everyone, and it did mention about, I heard at least anyway, that it was mentioning about the time we're living in now. So it has mentioned about things that have happened in the future. They've told us things are going to happen, and they've subsequently happened. So we did these experiments, and it was only about a couple of years later when I really started to knuckle down and go back through them. We realized we've been given this message as far back as 2013. So when we were doing these sessions and doing cases, when it wasn't a loved one coming through and giving, a message relating to that case, which has also happened, we were having this ongoing message about either something personal around me, or it could be around Richard, or it could be around some other person in the team, or stuff that's going on in the world. And that was the crazy, that was the crazy thing. And it was mind bending to actually, from my personal point of view, right? And it's really hard telling this story, to be honest with you, because it's just, how it's going to sound to people. right?
Not on here,
People-
brother. You're in good company here, man.
Well, excuse me, sorry, just readjusting myself. You know how I did a ghost box session with a member of my family, and I asked Jonathan to come through, and he was genuinely upset. Because if you think you've literally seen that person pass away before your eyes, you've seen the shell they've left behind, and then you're hearing them talk to you in their own words, mentally, it does something. It can cause so much upheaval. It actually got me to the point where I nearly had a nervous breakdown because of it. But the intent behind it was beautiful, but it felt that it was coming through, and it's not just happened to us; it's happened to other people around the world as well. I believe the intention of it is a demonstration. It's a way of saying, we are still here, but also that you need to start looking at that, and we need to start looking at our own fear of death, because it's our fear of death that's driving us to do some really crazy things in the world. You know what I mean?
And the world is a pretty crazy place. We can see that right now. And I want to bring Richard back in here. I want to get your take, your perspective on using the ghost box, the communications, the messages that you guys are getting. And of course, we've got the video as well. So after I get this off you, Richard, we'll get into the video here. But your communications now, do you have a one-on-one like Jared has with Jonathan? Does Jonathan come to you? How does that work?
I have spoke to Jared's brother Jonathan. He has come to me. My take on it, the problem is it's like mediumship, right? And we do mediumship, and I've done it on the lines. And I had to do it 1 year for Christmas to make money, because we never charge for investigations or anything like that. We've done it through our own money, and it's how people perceive it. I don't like it's horrible, disappointing. That's why I don't do the stage stuff, because you might have 100 people in the audience, 5 people get a reading. It's not fair. There's people on both sides. So. With using the equipment, I didn't want to do it live. I thought it was bad. I thought it was a bad idea. And because we couldn't control what was going to come through the box. And the stuff we've had, we had an incident about 2 years ago, I believe, and I saw a UFO. Me and Jazz were together. We just done a group reading. We had up the valleys, and we were coming back. I saw this thing in the sky, got out, and this thing flew over my head. It was anything between like 500 and 1,000 foot. It was like a reverse kite shape. It flew over my head, it flew away, and it was square on the sides like that, with a pyramid on the top and a smaller pyramid on the bottom. And I for some reason, my camera didn't record. I looked up at it, and it just bent over my head. And you could just about make the sound of the air moving past this object. There was not a hum, a buzz, or anything. It was just silence. And that weekend, we went through the mill. So for me, sometimes I don't hear the responses. Sometimes they are crystal clear. But it's the story, and how the story equates to our lives and the world as we perceive it are so profound and accurate. We did a thing, me and Jazzy, where we were looking. I kept getting numbers in my head. And we were sitting together, and we asked a question, and I got these numbers. We went to the Pacific live stream we did. We found that exact time, and there was the answer to the question. Now, that I just couldn't. So we didn't just do that once. We did it on quite a few occasions, and it had exact answer to the question we posed. And these numbers were just popping into my mind. Now, the thought of how they would perceive that they would have to place that in a certain point of time, for us in a certain point of time to ask that question, the mechanics of it, the science of it is just mind-bending. And I've never been able to pull myself away from it. Me and Jazz have discussed how people would view it and go, well, I can't really hear that. That doesn't make any sense. But for us in our story and our world, it's beyond measure. And this is why we've struggled trying to, we've fought to get this message out there. It's part of us to get this message of from these beings. And
Well, guys, unbeknown to you, right? And I wasn't really too aware of this myself. I mean, over the years I've been doing the show, I've found that it's been like-minded people that congregate together. Like, we clicked when we spoke, and it seems like for whatever reason people end up here. But the audience want you to know that there's a lot of people listening right now that absolutely that this is their life too. That these are the experiences that they're having. So, I mean, definitely not alone, and definitely in the right company. And I don't know, I get almost goosebumps because I know that there was a reason this show happened, because that was just weird how it came about. And I'll be really honest with you guys, and the audience know I've said this before. When it comes to EVPs, well, when it comes to anything to do with music, I'm tone deaf. My family will tell you that, right? And usually when it comes to EVPs, I'm useless until I get told what it is. And then, I hear it. But there's always a part of me thinks, I wonder if I would ever have heard that. And that's not to say that it isn't there. But then I watched maybe 2 minutes of the video that you sent me, Jared, and we're going to watch it here in a moment. And these are some of the clearest EVPs I've heard in a long, long time. And I don't know, maybe now's the time to play this video, guys. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah? Because I think that's really... And if you want me to pause it at any point, guys, just let me know, okay? Just shout and I'll hear you and we'll be able to talk about it. I'm going to take the audience over. And what I'm going to do is get subscribed to that right away. And if I open this in a new tab, come down here, I'm going to drop the link for the guy's YouTube channel into the chat room, folks. Show these guys some support. Head on over there. 2.1 thousand subs. Let's get them up at least a couple of hundred, okay? And for people watching this in the archive as well, head on over. It's in the chat room. The chat will replay. And you put this video together, guys. We're going to play a bit of it here right now. And it's called The Story of Jonathan and the Council of 12. So sit back, folks, and we're going to get into this video right now.
Hi, thank you for watching this video. My name's Jared Walters. And I really do believe the content in this video, even though I can't believe I'm saying this, could change the world. But it's quite a bold statement, so I want to try and back it up. And you can decide then what you make of it. So first of all, I want to show you this. Is that radio stations?
Yeah, so it sweeps through radio stations and it brings, the spirit's able to sort of manipulate the white noise to bring their voice.
Now I'm going to pause it there for the audience who might not know. This is what we're talking about when we talk about the ghost box, spirit box. You hear this kind of rattling, kind of abrasive noise. Now, my good friend First Paranormal in the chat room, he says that now some of that noise, they've taken it out of it. You guys recommended Huff Ghostbox on YouTube. My kid brother loves that channel, so I'll give a shout out to him as well. But yeah, just so the audience know, this is exactly what we were talking about there. And listen to what's coming up, folks.
So I don't see. You said your name, man, Josh.
And now I want to show you this. This. Say my name.
Jared.
I just said my name.
Yeah. I definitely said Jared.
And this. Is that Jonathan? Because I just heard my name and I heard Bruv before.
I heard Jared.
And this. So why is this significant? But from the best of my knowledge and my experience, these voices are from someone very dear to me who passed away 20 years ago, that has been trying with all his might, in every way he knew how, to tell me that even though his body has died, he has not. And that's quite an emotional thing to hear. So where are they? We asked them, where are you? If you're not here on the physical, obviously your body's died, where are you? This is what he said.
Where are you two? Are you with us now? Are you in this room? Yes.
I mean, wow. Listen, I'm sorry, I have to break in there, right? I mean, I've watched an abnormal amount of paranormal shows, okay? An unhealthy amount. And me and Anne usually get excited if there's any word comes out. Listen, the chances that these guys I usually watch getting a response are astronomical. It rarely happens, but this is like that. That's communication.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah. It's,
Sorry.
it's kind of mind blowing, guys. But I'm going to get back into it. Sorry, I had to say that there. Hats off for catching this stuff, guys. Honestly.
Oh, yes. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Tell us where you are. Invisible. No way.
Did you say that? It did, didn't it?
It
I
just
thought
said
it did.
it.
And he's also said that the situation between me and him isn't unique to me and him. This happens for each of us. This is what he said about me getting this message out there.
That is so clear. So clear.
I don't know what to say.
Crazy enough. We've also had communication with other beings. These beings are associated with a good friend of mine, and these beings call themselves the Council of 12. Again, don't take my word for it. This is what they've said. Can I ask what beings comprise the Council of 12, please? All of them. And they've also confirmed that they and my friend Richard have had contact where he has been on board their ship.
Wow! If you're taking away these ships are good.
They've said they're not from this earth. That
Right, wait a minute. I mean, they're talking to you by name, Richard, and on point, in context, talking to you.
That is just a smidgen of some of the times they've actually referred to you by name.
We've got hundreds of hours.
We got hundreds and hundreds of hours where they specific person asks a question and they answer you by name. It's it's hard to put into words. It's hard to you see it, but it's comprehending it. It's a different thing. It's like the way we perceive the world and these things that are coming out now. We know there's bad things in the world, but you just don't want to look at them. And this is kind of that type of thing. This is there, but it's like a leap of faith.
And we're going to listen to a bit more of this, but then we'll drill down into that message that's so important for now, okay? But again, guys, I would imagine there's been paranormal teams that have maybe worked years, they would probably give anything for just a fraction of what we've watched already, I tell you, hats off again. I can't compliment you highly enough. And again, I love the science aspect to it. But I can't get over these EVPs and the kind of the communication. That's kind of new to me. Very, very new indeed. I'm usually the type of guy that would rolls his eyes. I like to believe, but I've got a healthy chunk of skepticism about me as well. I don't keep my mind open till the point my brain falls out, type of thing.
Yes, especially
And,
me, man.
I'll tell you, very, very, very impressive. I can't. Yeah, here we go.
She's communicating from, well, what they call a ship. I don't know whether it's like a spaceship, like on Star Trek or something, or what. But listen to it for yourself, please.
We call into the beings of light and love that we've been communicating with. We welcome
Did I just say on my ship? Richard, whilst in meditation, had contact with ETs, and this is what happened. This is what happened to him.
I was standing in like an auditorium, like a circle, and there was all these different beings around me. And this was realer than my meditation. This became like almost reality, like pure, it's hard to put it into words. And there was these beings, and I was like, what's going on? And they were like, we are sorry, we have been testing you. And we have been trying to find the connection between the physical and the spiritual. So we started having conversations, and they were asking me how I felt about the world, what I thought should happen to the world, how I felt about love, what it meant to me, how I felt about life, what was the right thing to do with life, and how to treat others. It just went on, these questions, and it started regularly in my meditation.
They're also appearing in the sky above his house. We had this message last year.
That object you can see right there, I have just watched come up from that viewpoint where the lights are. Well, I had a message saying that these beings, whatever they are that's communicating with us, we're still not sure, this Council of 12 saying that they can, what we are seeing, back of the house, this is the back, okay? I'm in the bedroom right now. The back of the house, the things we can see over the woods, it's us. That's what this ghost box recording says. They say it's us, you can see. I don't know what to make of it. It's crazy, right? This thing we seen the other night, it's bizarre.
And they've also predicted things. You watching this right now, if you're watching it at the time I'm recording it, you may be going through the lockdown because of a certain virus that's going around. This is what they had to say on this. This was 2 years ago at a public event. This actually scared the people in attendance, and we had to stop the device from speaking.
If there's any spirits of light and love with us now that want to communicate, please come forward and use this device. I'll show you more.
Yeah, the passes in front of it.
This is some further things they've said about it in the last couple of weeks during some sessions that we've done. Is there any advice that we can give people? Can you give us something clear, a clear message? So now I've shown you this, I think I better give you a bit of explanation. So as I said, my name's Jared. I'm partially blind. I actually went to school for the first 10 years of my life in a school for the visually impaired before going to a mainstream school and then college and then university. I'm educated to degree level, so I'm not nuts, honestly. I lost my brother in 1999 to a condition known as dilated cardiomyopathy. My brother was your average 20-year-old. I have had a lot of weird and strange.
So does that just now catch up on what we've been going over previously then?
Basically, yeah. You know, there's a couple. That gives you the overhaul of everything there. To be honest with you, mate.
Guys, that is phenomenal. That truly is. And no wonder you stopped doing that in public. I'd never even thought about something like that, you know. The kind of implications it might have. No control what comes through.
None whatsoever.
Some of the messages we had were, you know, I got to be honest, as we did them live, could have put us, to tell the truth, in harm's way.
Yeah,
So,
there's a lot of danger.
Yeah.
Now, Richard, I don't like putting labels on anyone. I don't like labels on myself. But you mentioned church, Christian.
What church? Sorry.
Christian church, Christian. Not that it matters. I'm just wondering.
What church did you go to? What church did you do the meditation in, Rich?
Oh, sorry, no, it was a spiritualist church.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, my mum goes to them. Yeah, she goes to them sometimes as well. Yeah.
Well, I went to see a medium, and I went about 7 times, and said 7 times they said a different medium pointed at me and said you should be up on this stage, and I was like, oh, and I was going through it at the time, so I went to my local spiritualist church, met this old lady. It was amazing because she pulled the glasses down, took a look at me because she knew I was a doorman and a security guard, and she thought, oh, he's a bit of a brute, like, and she just looked at me. She went, start Monday. And that was my life, sort of like, she taught me how to control it because I couldn't, up until that point, I couldn't actually turn it off. And she taught me how to control it, harness it, and what, the sort of benefits of it. And yeah, I will be ever. She passed away now, bless her soul. But I will be ever, forever grateful to that.
How long ago was that? Was that kind of when you were told?
That was 2000, 2005, 6 maybe.
The only reason I ask is I don't know, dude. There's a bit of synchronicity going on with me and you here. I tell you, when I was in the army, I went back up home with my current girlfriend at the time, up to Fort Augustus, right on Loch Ness, and it was the time when the Highland Games were on. So the kind of Highland fortune teller was there in her caravan. Me and the girlfriend, we thought we'll be smart, She would go in first. We wouldn't let anyone even see that we were together in case there was any shenanigans going on. So she went in and, yeah, it was all great. Left it about an hour or so. And then I went in. And the first thing she said to me right off the bat was, I love a guy in uniform. And I'm thinking, whoa, hang on a minute. And then what she said to me was, and she pulled back the curtain, and I'll never forget it. She pulled back the curtain and said, see all those people out there? And I'm looking out the window, I'm like, yeah. But they're gonna, you'll have people like that coming to see you one day. And at the time, I couldn't really speak in front of 3 or 4 people publicly, guys. Used to get all tongue-tied and everything. But whatever that woman's saying, I had no idea I was going to become a podcaster, but she had a glimpse of something,
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's another synchronicity again. But guys, listen, let's get into the really important kind of messages that you are getting through right now to do with what's happening in the world. How are the Council of 12 viewing what's going on right now? Is it something that's, I hate to say this, is it something that needs to happen? These changes?
Unfortunately, sorry, Jazz, I'll just, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
The reason being, I've been saying this stuff for nearly 20, well, it's longer than that. I've been saying it since I was, a teen. And you have lots of people who have been trying to say for a very long time that if we continue on this path, things are going to end up being pretty bad and rough. And that's what they see something in us that we are capable of. And they see that we are way more than the sum of our parts, and just this sort of living in this sort of virtual doldrum. And, we're more than just there to consume and watch telly. There's a lot more to us, and they keep telling us that
I've been saying lately, Richard, that as opposed to waking up, we need to remember. As opposed to bringing in new information, we need to remember who we are, why we're here.
Can I interject you, Richard, for a second, please, bud?
Yeah, go on.
That is what Jonathan. The message I've had from Jonathan is the thing that stops us is fear. It's fear that stops us questioning everything, and it's from what he's shown me is he may believe he's not seeing Jared as little Jared as what I see. He's seeing this consciousness having an experience as Jared, and that we have lived before and we will live again. We are going to inherit the world we are creating for ourselves. He's talked about his past lives. We've done cases where we've had people who remember past lives. And this is all about us remembering who we are and remembering that we are love, and that we need to start questioning these things. It's like they've given us the stories of different religions, right? They've talked about the different stories, and they view it as stories. It's like I asked we did a session a couple of years ago, and I said, John, can you tell me what it's like? And he says, no. And I was like, why? He said, well, because it's different for different people. You know, the way he explained it was people's way is much different. What is it? People's way is quite different. It's the puzzle book of life, but you don't have to watch it. And what he's saying to me is there's desperate, we've got things like sex trafficking. We've got wars and people making money of it. They are the ones on the other side that are, having to receive the souls that have been murdered or have been traumatized or been, they are the ones seeing it on the other side. And they're saying, you've got to go back. You've got to go back to this. So at the end of the day, we are the ones that's creating this world for ourselves. And it's going to a very, very, very dark place. And what this is doing is it's giving a time out. I don't know if you've seen this. I don't know if you've seen the London Real and David Icke stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Now, I don't agree with everything that David Icke says. But what it has done is it's brought into the public awareness this conversation of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. This is, I do believe there's a virus, but there's also a dramatic fear campaign going on where fear is exponential on this planet at the moment. And we have to start meeting that challenge. And the way we do that is a friend said to me once, if you're following your life's purpose, you're already following it in some capacity, right? And it's a journey. It's a journey. It's a journey of understanding ourselves. And what I was finding was the fear wasn't what I was seeing on the TV, although that was kind of creating that was a reflection of something. The fear ultimately was the face in the mirror. It was how I felt about myself. It was and it brought into question everything about myself. And I realized I wasn't loving myself. I wasn't becoming conscious and present in the different moments that I was experiencing. And it literally, I had to literally break myself down because the old facade, the little me, the programming, the you boy, you wear trousers, you girl, you wear skirt, everything from that point onwards literally had to be broken down. And to get to a point, and I think this is what's happening in society now, we are, I believe, at a crisis point where we could go either way. And, there's several different ways of looking at it. But ultimately, it's down to us. We've got that power. We've got that power to change this world. And, I don't know if you want to come in with anything on this, Rich, but that was the message for me, personally.
Yeah. And Richard, I'll get your take on the messaging you're getting. And, also, are these beings able to intervene? I hate to put it this way, right? I'm a sci-fi fan, but is there like some prime directive where they can't just come down here and help, or how does that all play, Richard? How you've had it explained to you, anyway.
Well, it's like anything. It's like if God came down and took all the bad people and left the rest of us, we would become pretty quickly. It's like nature. We become very lazy very quickly, and we wouldn't really strive because we were like, if something's wrong, we'd be like, come on, God, sort that out. You sorted that out. Sort this out. And it's like the way I was shown there by Spirit. We're like children, and I was offered, for a good example, I was offered a real strong psychic ability. I had this conversation with this being with 6 eyes. It was in like a Chinese setting. And it was only later when it was. Are we still there?
Yeah, you're still there. Yep.
All right. And it was only later when I got home and I actually researched it that I found out that one of these deities with 6 eyes was the deity of psychic ability. And they offered it to me, and I said, "Oh, I don't want it." And they said, "Well, you can have it." And I said, "I don't want that ability." I said, "I can just about manage with what I got." And he said that, and he was like a bit of a, type of rope-a-dope, but he said, "Well, that's why you should have it, sort of reverse psychology." And I was like, "Oh, no, thank you." Because if you had an ability like that or any superpower, after, within hours, you'd corrupt it. That's the way the mind would take you. If you was invisible, within hours, you'd go spying on people and doing some weird stuff. And I was taught in the beginning, I can remember sitting by a waterfall, and there was loads and loads of spirit around me. And I said, what's this about? And they said, I've just come to look at you, just to come to observe. Because you'll get to talk to these people as you go through life with the paranormal. And I said, is there a big message? What can you give me? What can you, because you want me to do these things, but what can you give me? And I just had a hand on the shoulder and said, that's all I can say to you is don't make the same mistakes we made. And that was it's basically it. I mean, it's easier said than done to be really spiritual in this world. I find it a burden. I find it hard to try and tell people, because people just, it's easy to have someone say something to you and it affect you so profoundly that you find it hard to let go. But if there's a lot to it, and we've had this conversation. Me and Jared have been having this conversation since this lockdown. And,
I think I always try to find the positive. And I think with the way I think with the way our lives had been getting, we hadn't noticed just how complacent we'd all actually gotten. And this time, this kind of downtime, I would like to think people are being productive with it, even if it brings families closer together. Because, most families out working, or maybe it's a single parent, or whatever the situation is, maybe that can improve things, our relationships as well. And of course, on the flip side of that, I do understand that there's probably some people out there it doesn't go so well. I get that. But maybe just that pause, time to reflect, time to think about just how hectic things were. Yeah, time to think, Jared. What do you think?
I agree, but also bad things happen for good reasons sometimes.
Yeah.
What I find when I kept having throughout this as well was I needed to earn some money, and it kept coming back to the psychic lines. And I absolutely despise the psychic lines. But what an insight into humanity, what an insight into how people think, how people perceive this, and how much there's a bridge between how... I'm not talking about your listeners here, because I'm one of them, right? And I know there's a lot of really sort of interesting and open-minded people that listen to this show, and it's definitely a really lovely community feel. I can sense that, right? But your average person doesn't tend to have, this is what was really upsetting me, was like, okay, can you bring my nan through? Oh, what does she think of my boyfriend? Or can you tell her, what's happening with my relationship? Well, and I say, well, why don't you talk to your boyfriend? Oh, I've texted him. And it is such a breakdown. It's such a disconnect with relationships lately, especially in the last sort of, 5, 6, 7 years I've seen that, people weren't asking the questions I was asking, which was, when I asked about Jonathan, how is he? What's he doing? Is he all right? Is he, and there's a lot of people that were asking that question I was coming across 7, 8 years ago, and now don't seem to be as much. It's more, oh, what can he do for me then? And that I found really upsetting, because it was like, I could sense what they were feeling is like, you're kind of taking this for granted now, guys. And I think this is why I think in a sense things had to stop, because now we have to look at everything, and everything's under the microscope, and we're seeing cracks appearing in what we're being told. And I don't think the true narrative of everything that's led to this situation that has come out as of yet. We've got people's opinions of what they are seeing, but I think when it does, and what we're being told by this is it's going to be a bit of fire and fury, to be honest, because people are going to the psychological implications of this social distancing have been profound,
Yeah.
right? It's like, okay, it's bringing people closer together. Well, I saw my mum down the chemist. Like, I live 25 doors away from my mother, and I saw her down the and I couldn't give her a crutch, and I couldn't even stand and talk to her because people were stood 2 meters apart, and that messed my mind up. That I came home and I just broke down into tears because just something simple like giving. And this is the big thing, right? And I remember the first time I started to transcribe these sessions. And what I find is you're looking for intelligent responses, but you're also looking for patterns of speech, right? So does the response relate to the one that come before it and the one that come after it? I remember the first one was like saying we are star beings because they kind of gradually introduced themselves to us, right? And they said, your world is tyranny, but yet there's so much love. And this is what they want us to see as well, is the love that we have. But it's not just love like we see in Hollywood. The amount of people that think, oh, once I meet the right person, once I meet the one, right, that everything's going to be all right. And then, but yet we're seeing the decline of the family. Everyone sees love in the sort of Hollywood movie way. Love is a force. It's more like the force in Star Wars. What Spirit have said is the more that you let go of what you're holding on to, the more that you let go of that which you're afraid of. And I heard a talk from what really inspired me, Brian Rose, the guy from London Real. I watched one of his TED Talks, right? And he says, when you want to change, he says, the first thing you do is you look to your friends. He said, but your friends will like you, don't get me wrong, but they kind of like you the way you are. Because if you change, they've got to change as a response to you changing. He said, so you've kind of got to go out and you've got to kind of look at it in your own sort of sense, he said. And ultimately that will create resistance. He said, the resistance is not from people. The resistance is from within yourself. And all those people are a reflection of, because you might think, David over there might think it doesn't like me, right? But you don't know David doesn't like you because you've never looked through David's eyes. You just got that perception that maybe David doesn't like you because David brings up something in you that you don't like about yourself. So you've got to go to where that fear is, and you've got to confront that fear, and you literally got to say, come on, then, what have you got? And I heard, I was watching something yesterday, and this is something I started doing naturally, was sitting and just being silent. And I've done this all day today because I literally just had so much come up for me today. And I feel this is like a healing. Like certain things will come up and we'll get stressed. There's been no trigger for me, but it's just due to come up. And it's like a wound in a sense where when you get a wound, you bandage the wound. And then after a while, you have to take the bandage off and let it air. And then it's got to sort of come up and heal. So the skin can heal. And our emotional wounds the same thing. And you just sit there and you let the mind, you just sit there and you just listen to your mind. And you just sit still. You don't have to think about anything. Just listen to your mind. Your mind will make every single excuse under the sun to move. And it'll just go, why? Well, because of this. Oh, why? Because of this. Why? Because of this. And eventually your mind will just run out of excuses. And then you say, right, now what have we got? And then that's when your spirit gets a chance to speak. Because the mind is a tool. We are mind, body, and spirit. The mind is a tool. It's a problem-solving tool. And we think our mind is what we use. We use our spirit more than we use our mind. We just don't realize it. So the spirit can understand the connection between milk and next Friday. It can understand that by knowing something, like, for example, what you said. I had a gut feeling that you were the right person to contact to get this message out there, and we connected instantly over that phone call. That the mind doesn't understand that. It can't comprehend that.
No, I get what you mean. Yeah, I do. Now, Richard, I want to come to you then, because I'm looking at the time now. We're almost going for 2 hours, so what I'm going to do is I want to really get the two of you to give the really important messages that you really have been wanting to get out there without me jumping in. The things you want the audience to know, the things that the Council of 12 would like you to tell the audience. And I'll come to you first, Richard, okay?
If it's you got to really look at the world you want to live in, and they're telling you to be brave, stand up, come together. We can't build a world on pain and violence. We don't have to hurt anyone. We can just use the laws and the means at our disposal, which are made for us, to change these things. And we can. You don't think you can't do anything, because if there's enough of us, it's happened in history, and we can make this world, and we can show the future that we are the generation that tried. We don't want to be known as the generation that did nothing, because that will generally be our legacy. And I've got a vested interest in this world because I have children. I've got people I love in this world. I've got more people to meet in this world, and we can, if we create this. The more of us there is, the more chance we have of changing these things and making a world that suits us. But I just wanted to quickly answer a question you said. What can the Council of 12 do for us, Kev? Well, there's been a lot of activity down here at the moment, right? There's been some crazy flight plans we've been sent over because we've been looking into an incident that happened in 2016 called the Pentre incident.
Yes, I meant that.
Yeah, and we have had every day for, I'd say, the last week and a half, we've had airplanes, we've had probably 4 to 5 helicopters a day flying over this general area, because this general area is a massive hotspot. As you'll see, I've taken videos. I take one where this object sort of like goes across this helicopter, and the helicopter doesn't interact with it at all. It's quite bizarre. And
now I must admit, this Pentic incident, I've had Ben Emlyn Jones on the show. He's from Wales originally, stays in England now, but he speaks about that incident. Very strange. People with very out of place, maybe government, maybe military people turning up. Talk to the audience a little bit about what that was, Richard.
But basically, a giant triangle object came through, for what I've gathered through, because I've looked at Gary Jones's evidence and the evidence of the incident. A big triangle object came through a dimensional portal, because what we believe is there's certain sites in Wales where these ley lines coalesce, where they built monuments in the past, because you've got to think they didn't have the internet, they didn't have TV, they were much more in tune with their senses and their spirituality. And this object came through, some barrel-shaped objects came off it, interacted with some different eyewitnesses. One of the objects that came off this ship flew over to Lantern Common, was shot by a military aircraft, and came down in a place called Smilog. It snapped trees. I mean, there's quite a bit of evidence in the video. Snapped trees like 65 foot up in sort of a downward motion. And they literally removed the trees. They removed the evidence. They camped on the spot the next day. They tried to say they were like Vodafone or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I remember it now. Ben saying they said they were like some mobile engineers.
Yeah,
what?
They said they were Vodafone, but they had guns. And they went and tried to talk to her. Yeah, I don't know if they need guns for Vodafone, but
well, they might do it on the
maybe nowadays, right enough. Yeah, you never know.
They might do now with the 5G. Yeah, but. Basically, now I live right across from this place called Power Station Hill, and it has been synonymous with UFOs since the power station's been built. And I've been just randomly filming out my back window, and I've been filming some of the most bizarre stuff. And like I said, we've got this crazy activity. Now, what I'm thinking, and what other people in this field are thinking, is that they are picking up massive EMFs. And on the strength of that, these EMFs must sort of like appear before these objects. And they are like just basically circling these areas and taking as much data as they can, because they seem to be there before these objects appear. And at the moment, the activity, as I have never seen as much, air activity as I have over the last week and a half. So maybe there's something going down. Personally, I think there is. That's the feeling I get. As for their interaction, the Council of 12, it's like I said, I think they've got to sit back, and it's something we have to do for ourselves. Right? We are on the precipice to the abyss, and we have to find this strength in ourselves. And I think it's like I said, any interaction is going to be, we're never going to know if we were enough, if we had it in ourselves to say enough is enough. And that's what I think. That's what I was told, and that's why I don't think they didn't come down and just say, right, you lot, jog on, this lot to take in charge because you've made the right pig's ear of it. So, that's from my point of view.
I don't want to go all doom and gloom. I know a lot of people have, even before all the COVID stuff, people were sensing something's coming. And then you would think, with everything going on now, we're in it, right? But nah, there's a lot of people still think that there's more. Now, I don't know if you've been told anything or...
The sound will sound from heaven, apparently. So there is more. There's more coming. This is the start of it. Apparently, there's going to be more. This is a transformation, and they have told us that we won't fail it. They have every belief, and at the end of the day, we ask them what are they going to do. They're doing it. They've given us these messages, and at the end of the day, we can only interpret them. A lot of them are like encoded, so we won't know. It's like, for example, I didn't know what the word COVID meant until COVID-19 happened. Sometimes they talk about things in history, but it's something, I don't know why this is happening, Kev, but I'm getting pushed, right, to say this. If this is resonating with any of your audience, right, because I'm picking up this is, and it feels like there's other people watching who've had their experiences, don't be afraid to speak out. If you want to talk to us, our door's always open, right? And we mean that, right? It's the same for yourself. I, for some reason, I don't know if you noticed, I got a bit distracted when Richard was talking, but literally, my brother was freezing my bosoms off, can I say? And I just had this image there of someone as if they were getting, I don't know if they'd had like information or if they were going through things, and I felt as if this person's a bit afraid to speak out or what. But I just feel as if the need to say, look, if there are people watching this resonates to them and they want to have the conversation, that's what we do. We're here to have that conversation with people because the old ways are not working, and we don't know what the new ways are yet. But I will say this: when I first started on this journey, I was told two things. You are the person that you've been waiting for, and never, ever think that a small group of people with well-meaning intent cannot change the world because they're the ones that usually do.
Very, very well said. And Richard, I'll come to you. Yeah, I'll come to you for your final thoughts, brother. What do you want to leave the audience with?
Well, you got this Comet Atlas is coming, I believe, the middle of next month. And if it's better to sort of like, it's better to start now, right? Is question everything. Don't take anyone's word for it. find out for yourself. If you are interested in the paranormal, just remember, anything you see, you can never unsee. So keep that in mind, because you can have experiences that can be quite, they can be quite scary. And just try it. Just try and think positively, and just keep that thought in your mind and all the people you love. And if, and just believe in yourself. Believe in what you can say and what you can do, and you will be surprised. You will shock yourself at what you can come up with.
Well, this has been spectacular. I can't thank both of you enough
Thank you.
for your time, for sharing the information that you have come across, that has come to you. Jared, your story, man, your brother, I think that's pretty cool that you've still got some kind of relationship there,
Yeah.
even between worlds. I think that's really, really brilliant, man.
Brothers between worlds, man. That's what his son came up with. It's mad that you just said that. But this is a relationship that we can all have. This is not exclusive to me and Jonathan. We are just, at the end of the day, he's my brother. I can't say any more than that. He's my brother. And, he's been there for me, and I've been there for him, I hope. And I know that he works with others. He works with others. I know he works. I know that he wants me to get this message out there of love. That it's written on his stone, and it's actually written on his stone. It says, "Those we love don't walk away; they walk beside us every day." And I want to be able to contribute to proving that. And I might not be able to prove it, but at least attempting to do so, I think, is a worthy cause. And I want to give people hope that this is bigger than we are. Bigger, we are more amazing. And just like the Council of 12 said, it's all to solve. It's all to solve the magnificent, and it's true. You would be amazed.
Jared, I look forward to us speaking again, because we will speak again, and you as well, Richard. You guys,
thanks, Kev. Thank you so much, bud. Thank you.
I tell you, Paranormal Portal in the chat room. That's another show on tfrlive.com. Big shout out to Brent. I'm sure one day he would love to talk to you guys as well. But listen, these are doing something really, really cool. There's multi-levels to it. Yeah, sure. We speak about the most haunted, and my good friend Jason, first paranormal in the chat room, he thoroughly enjoyed this tonight. The chat, they've all been on topic as well. But this goes a little bit beyond the paranormal woo, as I call it. This is more pressing matters, a higher level, different dimension. And I would imagine neither of you guys, when you appreciated that you had second sight mediumship skills, you would ever end up on a show talking about messages from the Council of 12, right?
Not at all.
No.
That makes three of us.
I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and he said, it's mad, my life has worked out exactly as I thought it would. I went,
but guys, these are so positive, honestly. I spend a lot of time looking at the negative aspects of life, all those crazy conspiracies out there, and it gets dark. And I tell you what, though, you two guys are radiant. You really are. Keep doing what you're doing. Please stay in touch, not just through the chat, but emails and I want to get you back on again soon. Maybe next month, couple of months.
Yeah, it's fine, man.
I'd love to get an update. Yeah,
Kev, no worries at all, but we're so grateful and love and like to.
If you can stick around for a couple of minutes after the show, and I'll give you some of our personal info. I'd love to have a chat with you, off air, get to know you, Kev.
Yeah, no probs, man.
I'd love that. That'd be amazing.
If you
same.
listen to the show, what you see is what you get. Pretty much a Scottish version of Richard, I think. I don't know. I just get that feeling, man. I get that feeling. But no, I've had a blast tonight. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to the audience as well. Really, really love the fact that the audience have all got different belief systems. They're all coming from different places.
Yeah.
But they can have that kind of differing opinions, and at the end of the day, we all say great show, shake hands, and go back about it. There's no point falling out over having different ideas, right?
Oh,
We should celebrate it. We should celebrate.
Exactly. Now, folks, I'm not sure if I'm going to be back on later because, listen, this show, ever since the phone call, it's been in my mind, and today's been like a kind of adrenaline build. Right up, and just now that we're getting ready to kind of wrap up, it's like, wow. Now, make of that what you will, but it doesn't often happen to me on shows where, I tune in so much, there's something niggling at me. And in recent years, I really have paid more attention to my gut feelings, to that little voice, the one that Jared was talking about. When you quieten all the nonsense, when you get rid of all the other voices, that true inner voice, it definitely guides you in the right direction. And I don't know, we were meant to do this. Even if we help one person out there today, then I think that's exactly why this show had to happen. And everything happens for a reason, folks. And, it is a bit scary right now. And it's all right to admit that it can get scary. But never forget that even in these times of social distancing, we've never been so close together as well. Just take a little moment to think about that. And remember that it's all part of the game that we're playing. And there's a whole lot more to reality than what you see in front of you here. You've been listening to the Kev Baker Show. Check out Paranormal Now. Investigations.com, is it, guys? Or .co.uk? .com. Paranormal Now Investigations.com. And I'm going to drop that in the chat room. I'm going to shove on my crazy music. And I'll be back tomorrow with The Exorcist, Bill Bean. He will be here tomorrow at midnight in the UK, 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and that's 4 p.m. on the West Coast. And then Popeye, not the Sailor Man, the Rabbit Hole Man. He will be back at 1 a.m. on Monday morning in the UK. And that is, in fact, it's 1:30 a.m. tomorrow. I know, early start, late start for me, guys. I might as well move to America with the clock I'm on. But that will be 8:30 over on the East Coast and 5:30 on the West Coast. So until then, folks, take care. And I tell you what, I'm going to listen to this again tomorrow. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kev.
Thank you, Kev. Thanks to you listeners.
I don't think I'll be having you on too often because I kind of like having the coolest accent on the show. And and listen, don't even start singing. I know what you Welsh guys are all about. Don't embarrass me. We're out of here, folks. We're out of here.
I can't sing with them down.